What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor Season 38, The Edge of Extinction, the penultimate episode. Oh my God. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and I love the word penultimate. Like, it's such a good word for
Me
some
too.
reason. But yeah, guys, we're still going to be talking like a little bit of crap about Rick, but we're going to try to like tone it down a little. This is a reminder that like these podcasts are our opinions. We do this for fun. So if you're like shitting on us in the comments, like we don't really care. This is what we do for fun. We only read the comments to be like, huh, this person likes us. And then that's really it. Like you're not drastically changing our opinions or like our lives by commenting, being like, wow, you guys are so stupid for disliking Rick. And yeah, that's just like our disclaimer. We don't care. We don't care. This is our fun, not our like job. So take it what you
Damn.
will.
Savage Alyssa. Yeah. Uh, Literally, we just talk about the episodes and we're trying to give our opinions. Obviously, it's a TV show and everyone has their own point of view. Like, everyone's warranted to their own point of view. So, we would love to hear your critical comments in the description when you are talking about whether Rick is a good player or not. If you're saying that we're stupid and ugly, like that does not help us one bit when we're podcasting about Survivor.
Yeah. So that's our disclaimer. We're still like not going to be kind to Rick this episode. Like we didn't magically start liking Rick just because he found another idol. So like if you
Well, I
only
think
want
Rick
to
was
hear
planted another idol magically. Like, what the heck?
if you only want to hear good things about Rick, like stop watching now because you're not going to hear them here. Like go listen to some other podcasts. There's a lot of Survivor podcasts.
Yeah, and I think with this penultimate episode, Rick is basically winning the game unless next week something crazy happens or the person coming from Edge of Extinction is a non-Rick fan. And then, like, what I'm thinking though, the person who comes from Edge has the upper hand. They hold the most cards because they know what the jury is thinking. They've probably talked to everyone about the gameplay, stuff like that. So the person coming back should not be on Team Rick if realistically they want a chance to win the game. So it should technically be maybe like a 4-3 or 5-2 against Rick at the first vote, but Rick has an idol. So maybe the Edge person gets in, one vote later goes home, and then Rick just needs one more idol or one more immunity challenge win at final 5 to make it to fire and then to go from fire to final 3. So basically, it's Rick's game to win or lose. And we saw this episode. He's capable of finding planted idols and winning rigged challenges.
Yeah. So a note on like the planted idols thing. Last season there were a lot of people talking about how like was it last season? God, I don't remember the numbers anymore. When Ben won, there was a lot of talk about how like oh the idol was planted because like it was where like Ben always like went to sit in the morning or whatever. And like then I was kind of suspicious because I was like, okay, Ben is the underdog, but that doesn't mean that the idol was planted for him. But now seeing it like this becoming a pattern is making me a little suspicious. Like someone needs an idol in order to be able to like win the game. Like they need an idol for like their security blanket so that they can get past the final 5 vote and get into fire. And then it's like when Ben finds an idol, I'm like, okay, he found an idol, that's lucky. But then it's like when two people find idols at the last vote before fire, like, that's really sus, in my opinion. And I think we kind of talked about this during Heroes, Healers, Hustlers about how, like, there should be one vote where someone, like, has no ability to be safe whatsoever. Because in fire, it's just a 50-50 shot of whether or not you're going home. And even that, if someone, like, chooses to bring you with them, then you have a 0% chance of going home. And if you have an idol and you know to play it at the final 5 because you can still play an idol then you have a 0% chance of going home. So like I think what we said then and what I'm gonna repeat now is that like if they're going to continue doing the final four fire, and I think they are going to continue doing it because it seems like the twist is something that producers like, but if they're going to do the final four fire, there should be like a period where someone has absolutely no chance to use an immunity idol, just because it's like the final four fire was designed so that people who like were seen as big threats could get to the final challenge or the final tribal, and then it wouldn't be like a final tribal council full of goats. But it's like you can't just be like, oh, this person is interesting, so we're gonna drag them all the way to the finale. So
yeah, like maybe at final 5 you could have like idols end at final 6, and then final 5 it's free for all, because there are so many different aspects to the game besides winning challenges and finding idols. Like, I think it would be a great testament to good Survivor players if someone is able to get past every week without having to win a challenge, without having to find idols when their Survivor game life depends on it. So I think you can see both sides. Like, sure, Rick is great. He's finding idols, whatever. He's putting in a lot of work. Like, yes, good for him. But then you also have to see the other side of the coin. Like, Julie literally saved herself this episode. And I think a lot of this episode is being put on Rick. Like, oh my God, Rick's so great. He changed the vote at Tribal Council again. But I will put money on that the other people had the backup plan to already vote Aurora out. They did not change their minds at Tribal Council, but Rick is getting all the credit for all of these big moves, quote unquote. But there's so many other aspects to the game that people are just like forgetting exist. And I think it really goes to show like a good versus great Survivor player if you can get along in the game without having to use an idol every single week to save yourself. That's literally like a Joe Anglem way to win the game. And it's like, we've talked about Joe before. We think Joe needs to have the strategy component of the game. He has the challenge component, great. He's physical, great. But he doesn't have the social strategy component that we would want to see from a well-rounded player. And like, I just don't see Rick as a well-rounded player, and that's why I can't support him to ultimately end up winning the game next week, because Rick's social game is so bad. Like, I just personally watching, he rubs me the wrong way with all of his theatrics. Like, sure, yeah, whatever, you're bored on the island, but just the way he's sort of condescending towards people, I'm like, get off your high horse and like stop.
I think it's also like Rick cannot be the greatest Survivor player of all time if he got voted out. Like, you got voted out of the game, and yeah, there was a twist that let you get back in the game, but the fact that you got voted out in the first place means that you did not play the most effective game of Survivor that you could have played. And I think in response to the whole like idol thing, I was reading I don't know whether or not you guys follow like EW Survivor reporting, but there was a article commemorating, I think it's the 11th anniversary of the day Eric Rickenbach gave up his like immunity necklace to the Black Widow Brigade. And Parvati was talking about how she went to Extinction Island that episode, and she found an idol and she chose to leave the idol behind. And I was like, wow, what an icon. Like, you guys know I love like fans versus favorites. Like, Micronesia is my favorite season, undoubtedly, and Parvati Shallow is one of my favorite, if not my absolute favorite Survivor players. But like, I thought that was really cool and also really relevant, because it's like, I cannot imagine a person like going and finding an idol and then leaving it be in this era of Survivor. So
yeah, it's like that's the balls to the wall kind of gameplay where you are so strategically elevated from the rest of your competition that you don't even need advantages, even if you have them, which it's like Rick is using advantages week after week because he needs to, or else like Ben, like Mike, he's going to be voted out of the game. And yes, warranted, like people don't want to sit next to him at the final 3. But then I think the way he goes about it being like, oh, you all don't want to work with me, boo-hoo. Like, come on, dude, grow up. You're a grown man. You don't need to bully the rest of the people you're on the island with just because they don't want to work with you. There's a reason they don't want to work with you, because they don't want to sit with you at Final Tribal Council. You should take it as a compliment. don't take it as like all these people are dumb idiots not playing the game and I'm the only one playing the game. And I think if Survivor, the game, is just boiled down to who can find the most idols and who can win the most immunity challenges, regardless of your social game, regardless of voting incorrectly, like every single vote besides 3 now after the pre-merge, aka Rick, then there's no point to watch the game because all you have to do to win is be physically strong and be able to do puzzles and be able to compete in challenges and be able to dig through the forest. Like, if you don't have that second social aspect of the game, which I think Rick's game is lacking, then I don't think he's a well-rounded winner. If there's other people on this season, maybe not. That would be better. Winner, more well-rounded than Rick. That's another argument that we can talk about. But I just think like there's an issue of representation with Rick's confessionals. I saw it on Facebook from Reddit again. Rick literally has double the amount of confessionals than the next best person in the game. Rick has 51 confessionals. The next person is Julie with only 25 confessionals. And I just think this editing, I'm like, you cannot give one person 50 confessionals and the next person is at half of that number, especially when the rest of the people are like not straight white males on the season, maybe besides Gavin. And I'm like, production just loves him because of this storyline of voted out coming back in on this stupid Edge of Extinction twist. And it's like, I don't know. They just want to keep playing out that storyline. And if Rick does win, they're going to want to keep doing this Edge of Extinction twist because they're like, yeah, Rick would have been voted out 4th if he didn't have this twist. And so we want the winners to come back in.
Yeah, it's like, it's fine if like someone gets voted out and comes back in and goes on to win the game, but I feel like production is pushing that story too much. Like, that story can happen naturally, and like I feel like it would be better if it did feel like it was happening naturally rather than production like driving that story or like making it look like Rick was more important than he is. So yeah.
Yeah, and so maybe it's not even Rick. Maybe it's the editing of the season where Rick is being so shoved down people's throats that you have the people who love Rick and then you have the people who hate Rick because he's literally one of the only people that we see this season, a la 50 confessionals. And so he is really being shoved down our throats. And so maybe that's why there's so much contention around Rick as the player.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Survivor and like I still love the show, but I wish that it felt less driven by production. Because I think that was also kind of what made people upset in Heroes, Healers, Hustlers. Like they felt like Ben was only getting the winners edit because like he was the perfect winner because he had like PTSD and like this whole like story about like depression and then getting back from the army and like learning to like live again or whatever. And it's like, it's okay if the winner isn't the person on the season with the best story. Like, you know?
Yeah, Sia can still give you money at the finale reunion. Like, you don't need to win. Sia can give you just money at the end.
Yeah.
So Rick finds his idol within literally the first 5 to 10 minutes of the episode. And then I'm like, okay, no freaking way. 2 idols back to back after you play one. And like, I think, yes, you can have the argument that it is easier to find an idol once you found one because you sort of know what to look like. But 2 in a season and then the one planted idol in his bag, I don't know. I'm just like, that is pushing the upper limit of like number of idols played / found by Survivor contestants. It just seems a little fishy that you can find so many, but there is the argument that like, you know, once you find one, you can find another. But once you're pushing 3 or 4, especially back to back, and once you play one, it just magically gets respawned back into the game. I feel like Survivor should have like more of a waiting period because every person knows that like, okay, once someone plays an idol, let me go out the next next day and look for a new idol, because that's the way the game has played out in the past. But I think if Survivor wants to keep people on their toes and wants fun things to happen in this show, don't put it out the night after, like it's played at Tribal. Why not wait a few days, wait a day or two to trick people out and then make it more like a game of cards versus like, okay, I know for 100% sure an idol is probably being placed, rather than having the random time period. And so you don't really know. And then players have to play on their own without the clutch of having these idols and advantages.
Yeah, I think it's like one of those things where like, yeah, it's interesting to have idols in the game and not know like who has the idol or whatever. But it's also interesting to play the game without idols. Like we've talked about like advantage getting or whatever, and how like the number of advantages in Survivor is like getting a little bit out of hand. And it's like, yeah, it's different to learn how to play the game with advantages in play, but it's still like that is an aspect of the game, but it shouldn't be the most important aspect, because then you get to the point where like you don't need a social game, like Rachel was talking about earlier.
Yeah, and then you become a Joe Anglim. And so, like, yes, I can see the argument. Like, okay, yes, good for Rick. He's working hard. He's going up at the crack of dawn and looking for idols. Um, and like, I think the whole saying the advantages are coming from the edge of extinction, that's a great move. That's good. That's something that can throw everyone else off your tracks. And then Lauren basically outing herself. I think she was a little bit too pushy with the whole Rick, you dog. Like, we know you all have an idol. Haha, I know your idol didn't come from the edge kind of thing. And I think that will be interesting because next week, the person coming back knows Lauren has an idol as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to talk about like advantages coming from the edge, just because I forget whether or not everyone knew that already, but it's just like talking about how you have favor with the jury already is not like the best move if you want to get people like off your back, because it's like the people on the edge of extinction who are supposedly like sending you these idols or whatever are also the people who are going to be voting for you to win. And I feel like now that I'm thinking about it, that almost feels like a conflict of interest. Like, oh, I gave this person a thing, and now I kind of want to vote for them to win just because I gave them that thing, and I want to feel like I had a part of them winning, you know?
Oh, it's so much nepotism. It's all just inside deals.
Yeah. So, like, I think it's a good thing, kind of, but it's also like questionable. I
Yeah,
just like, mm,
it's like good. Okay, the other people won't go out looking because they're under the assumption things are magically appearing in bags. So, like, that's good. You sort of make everyone else more mild and not go out and look. But then when you do have someone who knows that you're lying about it, and it, like you're saying, it does put a target on your back because you're like, okay, these people who are the jury and are voting for the winner are sending me this stuff and they aren't sending you stuff, which means they like me more. And if they're trying to protect me in the game, they're probably going to vote for me to win. So yeah, I think it is a double-edged sword, and like that is sort of crappy. I feel like we should have heard both sides of the story, because if you just take it face value, you're like, okay, great, like good strategy, maybe.
yeah, yeah. I just, I have a lot of complicated emotions. So, yeah. It's a good
Yeah.
strategy, but it's also like, yeah.
So Gavin wins the reward challenge, and with all of these reward challenges, I'm like, do you really want to win them? I don't know. I think the whole picking people aspect makes everything so fishy. But like, obviously, you're not thinking about that probably when you're out there. Like, oh my God, I can't win this reward challenge because I don't want to pick people and draw lines in the sand. But yeah, I don't know. So Gavin wins. He picks Lauren and Victoria. I was like, okay, interesting. Final three deals happening. I think good for Aurora also not playing emotionally. And it sucks. I really like was starting to like Aurora too, like Ron last week. And then now she's voted out. And so I thought it was good Victoria reassuring Aurora after the challenge. Like, it's smarter for all of us to stick together. Like, it doesn't mean anything that you were the odd one out, which, like, yeah, it did since she was voted out this episode with them, kind of thing. But for Aurora, it is the most logical choice to stay in the Gavin, Lauren, Victoria alliance, because I think Aurora did have a better chance of winning against those three versus flipping to Devon's. Even though it would have been an easier ride to the end with Devon's, you have a less chance of winning versus the harder path to the end with a tight 3 core group. A little bit harder, but you have a better chance. And I think that's what we see like in Survivor's past, where people are willing to take the easier route to secure their spot at the end of the game, but they're sitting next to people they can't win against, versus maybe taking the more riskier route and maybe a not so clear path to the end of the game. So I really applauded Aurora for staying calm and like not going and flipping on the 3, because that technically is her most logical way to the end of the game, I feel like, and I guess she felt like.
Yeah, because I think it's like, we talked a lot in Ghost Island about how Laurel, like, in order to win, needed to like vote out Wendell or Dom, and it's like, yeah, Laurel got to the end of the game, but she had a snowball's chance in hell of winning. And I think that if she had chosen to vote out Wendell or Dom, that might have then made her path to the end harder, but she would have maybe had a chance to like do something, you know?
Yeah, and so with the reward, I sort of miss when there would be like advantages or clues on the reward challenges and not planted at camp. But that's another story. But I really wish that, like, oh, maybe instead of the idol being planted at the camp that Devon's found, maybe it could have been a clue at the reward, like in the food or like under the table, stuff like that, just so that you're always on your toes. You're not like relaxing at a reward challenge, which it seems like the spa challenge, this food helicopter challenge, it's all been fun and dandy. But I wish we could have seen like the elevated level of gameplay, have some clues at reward, have something there for people to constantly be on their gameplay and then make them work for it, rather than like, oh, I know the idol's going to be planted back at home again. Like, I played it last night. It's going to be out here. Let me just look for hours on end and then I can find it. Like, make them on their toes. Put some shit at the reward immunity challenges, not just that camp.
Yeah, because I feel like one of the things people complained about like stuff being, clues being at the reward challenge, was that it was totally random. But it's like, it's not any less random if someone's just like, oh yeah, I know that it's going to be there because that's where it was last time, you know?
And I think the randomness factor makes the game more interesting. Like, one of those 3 with an idol, but like that would be more interesting kind of thing. It just like, I don't know. I would like to see more randomness introduced into the game.
So would I, just because I think like having to deal with stuff happening is a part of the game, and like adaptation is important.
Exactly. So immunity challenge, Rick wins. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's really all there is to it. Rick wins. He didn't need to win because he had his idol, but he won.
Yeah, so Rick wins. I think the most downplayed part of this episode is Julie and Lauren's relationship. I think this relationship is what saved Julie. And yet, I feel like with the editing and with the tribal council, it seems like Rick is getting all of the credit again, just like Ron's vote when he didn't even vote for Ron. But I think Rick is overshadowing, and it looks like Rick was the one who flipped everyone and made them not vote Julie. But I think there are so many more intricate dynamics here that the jury is missing out on, that the people are missing out on. And there's literally like no credit given to like Lauren or Julie to try to switch the vote onto Aurora. Because we see in the episode, like Julie literally has saved herself because of her social game with Lauren. Rick continues to get all the credit. Like Lauren says that she would rather keep Julie over Aurora because she feels like she can beat Julie at the end. They're closer, all that jazz. And then when Gavin and Lauren talk, Gavin goes to Victoria, and I'm like, okay, great. Like, you didn't want to leave your ally out of the vote. This is gameplay that we are not like seeing exemplified in the episode. And so like Gavin and Victoria realize that Lauren is close to Julie and want to vote Julie and wants to save Julie because of their close relationship. So they don't maybe want to keep Julie around, kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of strategy that went into this vote, and the flip that probably happened before tribal council, they did not flip because Rick pulled out an idol, but Rick is getting all the credit that he flipped everyone.
Yeah, it's like just doing something flashy doesn't mean that you did the best thing. So
yeah, and I think that's where it goes to show like why production likes Rick, why people like Rick, because he is flashy, he's willing to speak his mind. But I think at tribal council, his theatrics are just like a little bit too much sometimes. Like, okay, yeah, great, the real idol, fake idol gimmick, like it's good TV. No wonder production likes you. It's a good gameplay move. And then he's getting all the credit. So honestly, good for him because he's getting all the credit for stuff maybe he shouldn't be getting credit for. But I really would have liked more information from the editing. Like, was it Lauren, Victoria, and Gavin's backup plan to vote Aurora, or were they actually tricked at tribal council? They probably had the backup plan. Like, if something happens, we will vote Aurora to save ourselves and not go into a tie or whatever, or get idled out by accident. But when tribal council is the only thing the jury sees, it really does look like that Rick is controlling everything. But I think the relationships are just so more minute than what we're seeing happening on screen.
yeah, which is why I think that I really like the new style of tribal where they get to talk back and forth to each other, because then the jury like has less of a chance to like project what they think onto the game. Because if the jury just came up and made a bunch of speeches about like, yeah, Rick was totally controlling the game, then it would be hard for people to be like, actually, this is what happened here. So I'm hoping that during final tribal, at least, people will um, people will listen and learn that things happen differently than they thought that they happened, and Rick is not like just totally controlling the game without any help.
Yeah, and I think next week when we do have the Edge of Extinction battle back, a lot of people think Aurora has a good chance at winning. You know, I would be down. I think Aurora, if she came back and then she can have her vendetta against Rick, because I'm like, damn, I really wanted to see Aurora have the opportunity to vote out Rick because she's been saying it so much, kind of thing. So I think that would be a fun battle back from the Edge of Extinction. Reem, people are like, Reem should win the battle back and then win the season from first out to winner. Like, it just be sort of funny since she like is such a big personality on the Edge. Yeah.
I would not be happy if Reem won. I'm really hoping that one of the returning players comes back from the Edge of Extinction. Like, I would really love to see Kelly or Aubrey come back and then win the game.
Not David.
Yeah. David still has a chance because David could still go on to play like a third time, I think. Whereas like Aubrey and Kelly, I don't think would be invited on for try number 4. But yeah.
Yeah, unless like a Survivor Legends season or something super hardcore. But I think next week it will be interesting. I am hoping that the person who comes back from the Edge is not on Team Rick, because if they're logical and if they're thinking about their chances of winning, they don't want to sit next to Rick at the finale. So hopefully if there's 7, it's like 4-2, 5-2, 4-3, or if it's a 6 again, like maybe Rick can go home and someone else can take the glory and the sole survivor winnings. But with the editing of what it is right now, no way the person with 50 confessionals is not winning the game, unless you're just like severely bad at editing and production that you would drastically have the winner of your game be so under edited at only 25 confessionals at the entire season, making it to final tribal council. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So chances are Rick is winning the season next week. And like, maybe that's why we're so gung-ho butthurt about Rick, because like it's a predictable ending. versus other seasons when you actually have a final tribal council where people are equally edited or like are equally good at the game. It makes it more interesting versus this where we know just looking at everything, like if Rick's not winning, then production really screwed up in their 42-minute episodes of what they're showing to the people.
Yeah, or also just like he's a severe red herring, in which case, like, why would you like bait us so hard? So, yeah.
Yeah, so I have my final next week, 7 to 10. Survivor starts at 8. If I leave my final and I see that Rick Devens has won Survivor, I need to delete all of my social media and light myself on fire.
I have a final the next day, and so I'm like, can I really afford to spend watching 2 hours of the episode and then an hour of the finale? So I'm like, can I do that? No,
Yes.
I can. Should I do that? Probably not, but yeah, it's gonna
Yeah,
be
so
a day.
let us know what you all think down below. Who is your winner predictions? Technically my pre show
Season.
winner prediction. Yeah, preseason winner prediction still in the game. Alyssa's is on edge, so technically everyone still has a chance of winning, but I think money's on Rick winning, which is sort of crappy that like we've seen it coming for the past 2 or 3 episodes, and so like there's really no point in watching.
Yeah, but let us know down below what you think. Please be nice to us, or at least give constructive criticism rather than just telling us we're blind and stupid. Because you know we don't care. And we'll see you guys next week to talk about the finale. Bye.
Bye.